Peter Parker's sitting on a couch sobbing. He just found out that his Uncle Ben, the man whose death defined his entire life, was a chronic gambler, a con artist, a man who was killed not by some random burglar, but by a debt collector he pulled a gun on. And Aunt May knew the whole time. She built a lie. She invented the saintly Uncle Ben so Peter would never know the truth. Now Peter knows, and the first thing he does is grab Gwen Stacy by the arms hard enough to leave bruises and scream that his entire life is a lie. Then he says he might as well end it all. That's not a fan fiction. That is an officially published Marvel comic. In 2002, Marvel handed Spider-Man to Peter Bagge, one of the most celebrated indie cartoonists in America. Bagge was famous for his comic Hate, a brutally funny series about dysfunctional losers that defined alternative comics in the 1990s. He'd never read a Spider-Man comic in his life. Marvel's editor, Axel Alonso, told him to do whatever he wanted. What Bagge wanted was to answer one question. What happens to Peter Parker if, with great power comes great responsibility, turns out to be a lie told by a dead con man? The answer is one of the most savage, darkly funny, and philosophically devastating Spider-Man stories ever published. And Marvel has spent over 2 decades pretending it doesn't exist. Let me walk you through it. The story opens in 1968. Peter Parker is in his apartment when Gwen Stacy shows up. He's a mess. He tells her what he has discovered. Uncle Ben was not killed by a burglar. Ben was a chronic gambler who owed serious money. The man who came to the house was a debt collector. Ben pulled a gun on the collector, and the collector shot first. Aunt May knew the entire time and built this fake image of Ben as a saint so Peter would never find out. Peter's reaction isn't sadness, it's rage. He grabs Gwen violently. He spirals into a breakdown. And then Gwen does something that changes the entire trajectory of Peter Parker's life. She tells him to stop seeing the world in black and white. She tells him the government lied about Vietnam. She tells him Aunt May lied to him the same way. She says the words that will define this version of Peter Parker forever. Live for yourself. Peter goes home that night. He's bruised from fighting villains earlier. He has no health insurance. He doesn't get paid. He starts questioning why he does any of this. And then he picks up a book Gwen lent him, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. He reads it, and something clicks. He kicks a chair across the room. He says he's done with this selfless hero nonsense. He's going to be master of his own destiny. He's going to look out for number one. This is where Peter Bagge does something brilliant. He takes the most important line in comic book history, with great power comes great responsibility, and shows you what happens when the man who said it turns out to be a fraud. The guilt disappears, and without guilt, Spider-Man has no reason to exist. The story jumps forward to 1984. Peter Parker is now the CEO of Spider-Man Incorporated. He runs a skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. He's turned Spider-Man into a brand. He's rich, he's powerful, and he's absolutely insufferable. When Aunt May calls to wish him happy birthday, Peter calls her a wrinkled old prune and says he thought she would be dead by now after he stuck her in a Florida condo. When Betty Brant addresses him normally, he demands she call him Mr. Parker and mocks feminists. When J. Jonah Jameson comes into his office, Peter forces him to get on his knees and kiss his feet. He makes Jameson call him Your Excellency. Jameson does it. He does it because Peter owns the company now. But Bagge isn't just writing Peter as a villain. He's writing Peter as a specific kind of villain. Peter has become a petty tyrant who justifies his cruelty through a philosophy he barely understands. He's taken Rand's ideas about self-interest and used them to become the exact kind of bully that Spider-Man was supposed to protect people from. He suppresses critical editorials about the president because he's donating to the re-election campaign. He refuses to let Spider-Man do a UNICEF fundraiser because he hates the United Nations. Meanwhile, Jameson, the man who spent decades hating Spider-Man, is now delivering Peter Parker's dry cleaning. He's humiliated. He's broken. But he stays because the company's doing well, and he wants his stock options. Everyone around Peter has been corrupted by the system Peter built. Gwen is fed up. She dumps him over the phone. Peter's response is to throw a chair through a window and scream that nobody dumps Spider-Man. Here's where everything falls apart. Peter has gotten fat. He can't fit into the Spider-Man suit anymore. The President of the United States wants to give Spider-Man the Medal of Freedom. Peter can't accept it looking the way he does, so Jameson comes up with a plan. Put someone else in the suit. They put Jameson in the Spider-Man costume. They alter it to fit him. They teach him how to use the web shooters, and Jameson, the man who spent his entire career trying to destroy Spider-Man, puts on the mask and goes to the White House. He stands next to the president. He receives the medal. And for one moment, J. Jonah Jameson is living the life he secretly always wanted. He admits he was always envious of Spider-Man. He secretly wished he could be Spider-Man. Then a gunman appears on a nearby rooftop. The crowd screams for Spider-Man to save the president, but the man in the suit is Jameson. He has no powers, and he has no spider sense. He can't save anyone. The comic doesn't show you what happened next. It cuts to 15 years later. Queens, New York. A young reporter named Trey Robertson knocks on the door of a rundown apartment building. He's there to interview Peter Parker for the 15th anniversary of the death of Spider-Man. Peter opens the door. He's old, he's broke, and he lives in a dump. Peter tells the reporter he used to be the chairman of a major corporation. He says he donated most of his fortune to a foundation. He starts rambling about how he used to believe in heroes and villains, but now he knows that evil does not always wear a green and purple costume. Sometimes evil looks like the person you see in the mirror. He hands the reporter a massive handwritten manifesto and tells him to read Ayn Rand. The reporter leaves. He tries to read the manifesto on the subway. It doesn't make a stitch of sense. He calls Peter Parker a lunatic, and he throws the entire manuscript in the trash. That's the last image of Peter Parker's legacy, a pile of paper in a garbage can. Peter Bagge wrote and drew this comic as a one-shot for Marvel's Startling Stories line in 2002. It was his best-selling comic ever. It outsold every issue of Hate he had ever published, and Marvel never reprinted it. Bagge was supposed to do a follow-up called The Incorrigible Hulk. He finished the entire comic. And Marvel's new corporate management was so horrified by it, they shelved it for 7 years. The experimental era that produced this comic was over, and the brand had to be protected. But what makes the megalomaniacal Spider-Man, that's a mouthful of a word, so haunting is not the comedy, even though it is pretty funny. It's the argument at its core. Bagge, a lifelong libertarian and contributor to Reason magazine, didn't write this as an attack on Ayn Rand. He wrote it as a warning about what happens when broken people use philosophy as a weapon. Peter Parker didn't fail because Rand's ideas were wrong. He failed because he grabbed onto them for the wrong reasons. He was looking for permission to stop caring, and he found it. Every version of Spider-Man depends on one thing: guilt. Take away the guilt, and you don't get a hero who chooses freedom. You get a man who builds a tower with his name on it and makes everyone around him kneel. Peter Bagge understood something about Spider-Man that Marvel has spent 20 years trying to make you forget. Take away the guilt, and the hero was never there to begin with.